All right, now we can let everybody know we're out here. Hey, everybody, I'm Matt Hill. This is the Talking Energy Show, episode 20.
Episode 20.
We are in the Trace Management podcast studio. Trace Management Engineering graciously gave us a space so we can...
Yeah, the price was right.
Yeah, the price is right, yeah. So we appreciate this as a sponsorship. This is the only way we've ever monetized this, but...
yeah, we're still waiting on all the whiskey sponsors, by the way. We've been putting it out there.
By the way, we're all enjoying a Maker's Mark private reserve. So if Maker Mark is out there, please, send more, sponsor the show. Let's go around the room and introduce everybody. Go ahead, Bobby.
Okay, Bobby Patrick, kind of semi-retired. I retired July 2020 from Encana, drilling manager for most all my career, and retired here to be closer to grandkids.
Yeah, how many grandkids do you have?
I have 7.
7 grandkids, man. That's
3 here and
legend.
4 in Houston.
Bobby, when you were in Encana, Chesapeake had this program. It was really cool where they were taking engineers and they would go through a pipeline and go through production and drilling and completions and all that. Did you do that in Encana?
I didn't do that, but they do have a rotational program there. So, yeah, it's a great... They had it up in Canada as well. I was up there for 5 years in Calgary, so it is a great program. But they go like 3 different disciplines over a couple years, and kind of pick where they want to end up. And
yeah, being at an engineering office, it's always a question. You get people that are highly specialized, but there's not a lot of jacks out there. And, Max, I think we've talked about that in the past. There's not a guy that understands reservoir all the way to the production. Usually anymore, people are kind of stuck in their one road. They'll be drilling engineers forever or something like that. And they don't get to diversify, which is really bad in a downturn, because you need to pretty much know how to do production in a downturn or something to keep your job, it seems like. But
yeah.
What about our other distinguished guests in the room? You better introduce yourself, homie.
Max Holloway, currently the VP of Operations for RKI Resources here locally. And been in the business this is my 42nd year, counting when I broke out welding on workover rigs, and then roughnecking, on those workover rigs that I made the year before, and then ultimately getting an engineering degree and going through my 11th jersey change right now. It's a lot of companies. Would have never have thought that along the way. So,
when you first got into it, though, there wasn't private equity back when you had the wooden derricks and everything like that, right? So,
we predated the wooden derricks. Actually, there's a picture in my office. It's from the 20s. And it shows the workover rigs back in the day where the derricks were there, like you're saying, the wooden derricks. And you just pull this tractor up, and it was kind of funny because there was nothing rubber on it. I mean, you just had like the blades there on the tires to get into the muddy locations, and it had everybody standing up in front of the rig, and the superintendent, he had a tie on. That was back in the day when they had ties. So we didn't have ties in the field when I broke out, but it wasn't that long ago before that. So.
That superintendent throwing it over his shoulder when he was grabbing the tongs?
Exactly, so it didn't get caught in it. So,
Do you remember what the first drilling contractor that you went to work for was?
Gosh, there was. Well, that would have been Pride Well Service. Okay, so we were doing washdowns and things. We had most of our rigs were on wheels back then, and that was a lot of fun. I had a picture of me on a rig, and my dad was standing next to it. And I've got that picture also of him when he broke out roughnecking in the 50s with some of his family. And the pictures look noticeably different. Like, you got the little son up there with next to the Uncle Ralph, and nobody's got hard hats on, and he's walking around barefoot on a rig floor, and it was just truly old oil field. So.
Smoking.
Yeah.
Drinking.
I mean, I was blessed to have my dad take me to a lot of rigs when we were young up in northwest Oklahoma. And, I mean, we had a great time in the summers. We'd go out and he'd let us pull the either motorcycles or 4-wheelers out, 3-wheelers, dating myself. Go wherever we want, and he'd say, "Hey, make sure you come back here in a couple of days." So we go, like you and your brother. See you later. We would take our motorcycles and try to ramp over the mud pits.
Oh, awesome!
Good time. What about you, Bobby? How did you get started in oil and gas?
Well, I grew up in Crescent, just north of here, but I went to OSU, and I was going to be a coach originally, and then I was working in the oil field in the summertime, making more in the summer than what I would be making starting out as a coach. So I said, maybe I need to quit school or change my major. So I changed to petroleum. And then I went started out in Great Bend, Kansas for Energy Reserves Group. They were out of Wichita, Kansas, but didn't stay there long. Then
An operator.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Went on the operator side. And
Was
so-
that your first engineering job?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did they have you go through, like you were saying, what was your first discipline that you're like, oh, this is what I want to do?
Well, it was back then. You kind of had you were an area engineer, so you did drilling, completions, production facilities, reservoir. When I was in Kansas, I picked 2 locations. I did some geology on the anticline on the Arbuckle and drilled 2 wells, Arbuckle wells, and so yeah, you do a little bit of everything back then.
Back then, Bobby, did you have a big old book that you monitored the production every day? I can't think what it's called, but big old the line graphs.
Yeah, we had those big binders.
Yeah.
And we used to allocate. I used to figure up the allocation factors and do all the production of your area. You know, you're responsible. Yeah, you drew your own decline curve. That was before.
You plot your own production against budget, so you knew where you stood.
See,
And I had this one production manager, and he, if your curve was going down too far or too fast, he would orient the book. He goes, "This is how flat it needs to get," But it's like, well, it's still the same numbers on the graph, but just like, but that was the point. They were always looking at that, even back then. So.
How long did those wells take to drill when you were first doing it?
well, how deep were they? I mean,
Yeah.
what was the bore?
Oh, I can't even remember the casing design other than you drill down to like 5 feet into the Arbuckle because it's a big water drive reservoir.
Okay.
Set your intermediate string and then drill 10, 20, 30 feet of open hole because you produced a lot of water with it. And I don't know, they were probably 8 5/8. So you might have been drilling. It was probably drilling like a 6 1/8 inch hole, so it could have been maybe 7 inch. And,
So, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to ask more of a broad question. You guys are a wealth of experience. Where did you guys work? What assets? Where were they at? So we can kind of maybe look at the differences.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Max.
You already in the...
Well, I broke out in Oklahoma, so my first, I guess, basins to work were all through the Anadarko Basin, both on the Oklahoma side and the Texas Panhandle side, the deep Anadarko basins. Then things started contracting in the mid-'80s. So the group I was with, Tenneco Oil Company, plucked about 4 of us out of the mid-continent and then sent us down to Houston. And in Houston, then we would have a technical liaison with 2 other people in Colombia. And that was during then, at that point, the late 80s. And the idea was when we'd send guys down there to live full time, they had a bad habit of getting kidnapped. And so we would take trips down there, but they were more under the radar.
What was the reasoning, do you think, behind the kidnapping of Americans drilling?
Well, it's just a money play.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a type of crime that they had down there in Colombia. You'd have a snatch team, and then they would hand you over to somebody else, and then you typically would have like a judge, a corrupt judge, negotiate on behalf of the captors, and then our policy was we didn't negotiate with kidnappers, and so we lost. We had a guy named Mike Stewart get kidnapped in the later part of 1985. He was there for 4 months, and we got him back during right before Christmas. So it cost $1 million.
So they did end up paying.
Yeah, we did end up paying. Tenneco did end up paying, but our stance was we don't. Right. So when I showed up to work there, they ran me through security, and they said, "Take your shoes off," and I go, "Why?" And they said, "Well, we're gonna fingerprint your feet also." And so I had all my hands, palms, and my feet, and my fingerprint.
Terrifying.
I hope they paid
was.
well. I mean, like if you
No.
don't, if you already know
For
their
the
state.
reasoning why, yeah.
No.
Their standpoint is we don't negotiate with terrorists, so if something happens, good luck.
Yeah.
We need to be
I
able
think
to
I'm gonna look
find
for another
Your
job.
feet or your hands.
Well, I was such a company man back then. Okay, so you got to think 1983 when it broke out. I mean, I was there to work for that company forever. That's just how things were about that time. It wasn't until the late 80s or the mid 80s, actually 86, when crude oil hit, its rock bottom at less than $8 a barrel. And did the character of the business atmosphere change in which it put people on continuously short cycles? So I look back at my career, and I've been in it for quite a while. And long term's nothing but been a series of short terms. And so that was the first one. After 1989, they sold off, broke Tenneco Oil up into a handful of pieces because of a whole different bizarre deal at the corporate level. I got into too much debt building tractors. A JI case was trying to overrun, take the market share away from John Deere globally.
Okay, that kind of tractor, not an oil and gas tractor.
No, it's that kind of tractor. Yeah. So a greedy accountant at the tractor side of our corporation basically forced the crown jewel of Tenneco to be sold. But the interesting thing when that happened was we sold off in 7 different pieces. All of a sudden, my network went everywhere. Okay, I knew people throughout the entire industry at that point. And that was one of the good things. You talk about the networking here before we started, on Wednesday. So you're building your network. You're just building your network. And that, unfortunately, was a painful way to start, but it continued to work out. But other than that, so Columbia, Mid-Continent significantly have had West Texas, East Texas, every basin in Oklahoma, Mid-Continent, and up in the Powder, and so and some Rocky Mountain experience. So,
have you drilled overseas since Columbia?
In Columbia, my role was a production engineer over there, and so yes, we did have wells that were being drilled. They were shallow wells, 5,000 foot, perforate them, and they'd be flowing 1,200 barrels a day.
Ooh, is that offshore or onshore?
I was onshore, Magdalena Valley.
How did they have the infrastructure way back then for oil and gas? I mean, heck, we have a hard time, right here getting, parts and equipment.
It was definitely a challenge. Definitely what I would consider classic exploration. You've got a field in the middle of nowhere. You've got to build a pipeline in there to get your product out. You've got to build a production camp, okay, where you actually bring people in, the people are living there. Yeah, it's the whole shooting match.
Max, maybe you or Bobby can answer this. It's something that's plagued me since I got into the real oil field. When I say the real oil field, I was actually out on a rig. Mm-hmm. Why can't you guys put these oil fields, in Florida? Why can't they be down the street from?
I've heard that before.
Yeah, good geologist.
It gets to a point where you're like, there's a Walmart, so I'm in a real town.
Yeah. It's not because numerous people haven't tried.
Yeah.
Trust me, every company that I've been around that has had any type of wherewithal is exploring for oil and gas onshore around Destin. Okay, that's just all I got to say.
J-Field in the Florida Panhandle. Yeah. Exxon had that.
Yeah.
And how was the production on that? I wonder.
Okay, good enough.
I think it was very high pressure.
Yeah, there's some smackover fields down there as we get into Alabama and things like that along the coast.
That may have been the first 30,000 psi tree that Vetco Gray built. It was down in that smackover Mississippi, Florida area.
Is smackover? Is that a play or is that an expression? What?
It's below the Haynesville. Sour. Jackson, Mississippi Shell did a lot of wells, and they were high, 35% H2S.
Yeah,
so
it's
they were
nasty.
Very
It's
sour.
nasty.
Why is that geology like that there? It's just
it's when you think of the H2S type concentrations in these different formations that you have, usually it's some type of a deep-seated fault that goes down and connects you into much deeper basement rock and the igneous rock that comes up, that's more connected. So, you take a look at some different plays through Oklahoma and the different places, and that's typically what the reason is. Deep-seated faults that go pretty, into much deeper basement.
That casing has lasted the test of time with all that H2S in there. They think their abandoned wells over there are a little bit more dangerous than ours. How much H2S is coming up over there?
If you're not set up for it, it's going to bite you. Right?
Yeah, it would have failed by now.
Yeah.
Were you guys, Bobby? They were probably pumping the H2S back down, or what were they doing?
No, they were drilling for the gas.
Mm-hmm. And what did they do with the H2S?
Well, they had sulfonol or Slexol or whatever kind of treatment plant that they were stripping it out. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't know if Mississippi had elemental sulfur, but just south of there, Mobile Bay, was Mobile Field, but Marianne Field, they had high H2S, but they were also getting elemental sulfur when they produced the gas. So, which is
that where some money?
Yeah, that's where a lot of the money back then could have been on the sulfur.
So you've seen the safety culture of our industry exponentially grow and start taking care of the people.
Would we say that there's a difference between, so you've been very large entities. Max, for the most part, would you say you've been in smaller startups?
Yes and no. I've worked for the biggest corporation in the world, and I've worked for the smallest. I worked for Exxon, and I worked for myself.
Yeah, I was going to say
I've worked for a number of in between. I was one of the area division VPs for Range Resources. We had 4 divisions at the time as they continued to migrate through. And so, yeah, we were part of that 1510 club, which was more than $10 billion market cap and the 15% 15% growth rate line of sight. That was for a window of time years ago. Okay, so that was a pretty big outfit back then. Yeah, pretty big. And Range Resources obviously discovered Marcellus. I wasn't involved in that division, but they became more of a pure play as they worked all their divisions out of the portfolio to become just the Marcellus gas play. And then they chose to then reverse course and grab another $4 billion asset, Memorial Production, that they tried to work over there in Louisiana. And so not as successful with it as they were in the Marcellus, so they went ahead and offloaded that. So, yeah.
With gas prices the way they are now, all those old, just huge gas plays like you were talking about, you think they'll come back? People will start looking at those areas again as really interesting to go back and either work over old wells or drill new ones.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Bobby, why didn't we go back to the Smackover? Why is that not a major play? If you're talking about how big that
30,000 MCF is, that's what I want to go after.
The only reason I knew about those, I was at was Energy Reserves, and they got bought out by BHP, which a couple months later bought out Monsanto. So I was involved in the Madden Deep up in Wyoming, Lifeside area, and it was 12% H2S, 19 CO2, elemental sulfur, 450 degrees. We had to run Hastelloy C276. Back then it was $700 a foot. It was just, we did a lot of metallurgical testing, but those wells are still producing. They were Madison, Mississippi, Madison, but talking about H2S, usually anything below Cretaceous. And I was up in Calgary, everything up there is sour, you're talking 5 to 10%, most of the formations we were drilling. But I think with this ESG and zero neutral carbon, I think natural gas will probably outlast oil, would be my speculation.
I think that's the bet right now, is that gas is the long-term play. Right?
Well, when you take a look at it, this year, some are forecasting that this will be the peak gas production for the United States to this point. In other words, in 2022, we're going to be making more gas than we ever have at any time annually. So that is what's going to be.
So I finally found out, everybody that's been in the studio, and Jeremiah and I have asked around, but we were looking for how many wells are actually on the books as producing wells in the United States right now. And it's about 1 million wells. That's
wow.
What we have
Active
in the
wells.
United States on the books as a producing well that they're tracking about pretty close to 1 million.
You guys are not producing. They don't really have to make a profit or net positive. They just got to be producing.
It's all the way from, it shows every single operator's wells that they have on the books that is producing, that's feeding that data, but it's from the 1 barrel a day up to the thousands of barrels a day.
I can tell you, I got a letter from Texas this month, and they are going to start having a better idea of their producers and the size of them. So operators that run in Texas now have to submit to not the EIA, but their ERCOT as very important wells that must keep online, and they drew the line at 15 MCF a day. Yeah, so now you have to report those because those are now national security wells.
Oh,
wow.
I shouldn't say national security. I'm saying the wrong word, but they're important to ERCOT or to the state of Texas in the event of what happened last year. So they were kind of caught off basis last year. They didn't know where their producers were. So now they're trying to get a better idea of what wells and where they're at that are providing the most gas production. And that's what they cared about, too. It asked if they were designated as oil wells, but they wanted to know how much gas is coming off of it for the grid, for the electrical system. So.
Or
Matt,
not even coming off gas. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, you had asked a question I thought was an extremely profound one, but probably needs a little bit more to dig in. Okay, so, and that was, are we going to get back to producing some of these wells or getting into old plays? So you've got to think of the character of what has happened over the decades. We have always gone after reservoir rock until a few decades ago. Mainly, Mitchell Oil down there in the Barnett got us going with the resource play. That has been a number of years ago, yes, but we have all these conventional-oriented reservoirs that we were milking along for years and years and years. So the one thing about those type of plays is that when they're depleted, you're just waiting on the source rock that's either above or below or that's migrating and feed it to do that. Well, in man years, I mean, that's millions of years, right? So that's why we jumped up in the source rock and we're beating it to it. And so we have a much better chance at going and getting more gas where we've already found it.
Max, can you, real quick, before you run on, explain the difference between a conventional play and a non-conventional?
Okay, so in general, a conventional play is what we typically think about where the rock is sandstone or some type of carbonate. It's got some type of reasonable porosity. It's got some type of...
What's reasonable porosity?
Oh, shoot. Just in the past, we used to call that like 6%. Now, you have rocks that produce less than that, and porosity, it's a lot more than that. So if it's conventional, we typically have drilled them vertical. We've de-spaced till we've recovered the reserves. Unconventional, even though that word, I mean, you can look and you can find 5 different definitions by 5 different guys, but basically you're chasing the source rock, or you're chasing really tight reservoir rock, all right? So we have now focused mainly the source rock and not tight reservoir rock, because we want to go where the goodies haven't migrated into the reservoir rock yet. So in general, that's a pretty loose definition. I'm sure your listeners are going to say, that's not really what it is. It says this, this, and this. But when I think of unconventional, I think about going to the source.
You want some controversy in here, so people actually respond to all this. So if you disagree with us, great.
Yeah.
Well, years ago.
Yeah, contact Max directly. We'll put his number up here later and send him hate mail.
Yeah,
you know?
It's right here at Trace Management, by the way.
All 3 of our viewers will they'll agree with us.
Have you ever seen a sign that had the thumbs down? I mean, I'm looking at these
Absolutely.
different mojos, but just don't give them a choice. You the thumbs.
Sometimes people watch these videos and they just comment on just Jeremiah and the way we look.
Yeah, like across your legs.
Or they're interested more in that deer head.
I kind of assume when we have
This one issue I'm going to come alongside of you to make sure we get through it fine as you build trust with another. Another one could be is that they've been around the organization a while, but they haven't done a certain type of a job before. So for that one thing, you come alongside of them. You say, okay, look, you're going to get your feet wet on this. I'm going to hold your hand. I'm going to give you just enough rope to feel snug, but I'm not going to let you hang yourself.
So Max, where are you at in that? So you got the email chain coming up. And you got the field level sending in their reports, and you're seeing something. Are you responding to the field level, or are you making sure your engineer below you does?
Oh, absolutely. Always respect the reporting hierarchy. Yeah. So you can. I've always had this saying that you can talk to anybody about anything as long as it's not confidential, and you respect the decision-making hierarchy. So there has been times where if I can't get a hold of a hand, I see something going on, just like Bob, you just got to kind of monitor. You got to be engaged, fully engaged, not just engaged, but fully engaged. With these burn rates that we have, it's just amazing how quick money can get away from you and destroy the end result. But if you see something, I have called up people a number of times at all different levels. And that also lets them know that there's multiple eyes on it. But I will say, as executive in oil and gas, okay, well, this is what I'm thinking, but I'm going to get a hold of so-and-so and let it work through the chain of command.
That's the hard part. That's the hard part when you don't jump that
because
because
ride with your person below you, their decision. Right?
Yeah, if you want to build a relationship, otherwise you just took it away from them, and they're not going to. Sorry. So that's why
that's
I choose
micromanaging in a bad side.
In a negative way. So micromanaging, it just depends on how you frame it. If you let people know ahead of time of what you're doing, they're going to say, okay, well, he trusts me, he doesn't think I'm an I don't employ idiots either, right? So, but it gives them a chance of learning with confidence instead of feeling like, that's not a distrust.
All right, Max, the second time it comes up, do you let them handle it on their own?
Possibly. It depends on the situation,
If what's Ronald Reagan saying, trust but confirm, or
Trust but verify.
Verify.
That was Donald Rumsfeld.
No, was it?
Yeah,
No.
Rumsfeld of the CIA.
That's older than that. I thought that was from
Well, then,
World War II.
Then he plagiarized. But I remember Rumsfeld saying that on TV.
Verify.
Trust but verify.
But I had a kind of a org chart or decision tree, chain of command, because you got the engineers calling the rig and telling them the supervisor, drilling supervisor, what to do, but you got field superintendents either in the field or in the office. I don't want the engineer going around the superintendent. You can talk to the drilling supervisor, but just on discussion of information. But if you don't give them any orders, you want to give orders, you got to go through the superintendent. So you got a dotted line engineered to the rig, but the superintendent's really the solid line that makes the final calls.
Yeah, and I've worked with some good engineers that did that as a directional hand when we weren't getting build rates or something like that. So we would all go into the company managed trailer.
Mm-hmm.
It was a conversation where the engineer was speaking. I didn't really ever have any superiors outside of the drilling engineer. There was no one higher, but it was a conversation where we all discussed it. And Mike Lindsay, Mike Lindsay, I think is actually how he said it. He was at Chesapeake. He was a great guy. He was a
Chaparral now. Huh? Right, Mike Lynn's at Chaparral now.
Yeah, he is. But he was ex-military, but he really understood chain of command. And I was on a well in Alfalfa County, and that's how we went into the room. And it was my first time leading a job, right, as a directional hand. We're sitting there, and it was a conversation between all of us, and it was very well handled. And I've been in scenarios where it's very poorly handled, but Mike was like, all right, what is your opinion, directional hand as well as company man? And then we made a choice, but it was very well handled. I've seen a lot of top-down that didn't go well. It's a very difficult thing to do as a manager, to not micromanage, to empower your people, but to make sure your influence is still in there. So
it takes a while. I mean, you can't. Some leaders
rope to give them.
Yeah. You know, some people say that leaders aren't born; they're made, and I'm more of that. They have the characteristics of being able to lead, but I think there's some training that's involved there too. So it helps you.
When you got to that point to where, like, man, I'm at the. I feel like because I'm right there right now for myself. Like, okay, I'm at one of the highlights and peaks of my career. Now I can start giving back to others, and I can reach down below me and bring people up and give them all my knowledge and brain dump into them.
Yeah, invest in them.
Like, where did you find that for yourself?
Well,
that day
you must have had a bad experience at some point. Like, all right, I'm doing too much. I'm going to take a step back.
Yeah, I need to delegate some of this.
You know, like I said earlier, long term is nothing more than a series of short term. So I think depending on what chapter you look at, where I'm at, I've been in some incredibly small startups. Just 2 chapters ago, it was just me and a tech, and I prospected, drilled, got ready, completed, equipped, produced, and then we turnkeyed it, we then sold it to a local operator after we built it up. So it's a classic PE flip. As one of the last ones.
Everything worked out according to plan.
Yeah, in 2017.
So you actually got that experience of, like, oh, that's the perfect one. Yeah. We could have seen it go worse, but.
Yeah. So, in that, there's nobody to look at but myself. Then turn around, that came right off the heels of managing 150 people. And so there are some things there that are challenging, Jeremiah, on how far you lead, who you lead, and how you do it. But you never ask anybody to do anything you wouldn't do yourself.
That's right.
So just went from sitting in the corner office to trying to delegate and encourage and lead, and then went out on my own and just did 100% of it all.
Yeah.
So you got to be perfect.
Bobby, is like the first time. Do you remember the first time, like, there was a major problem going on and you got this? Like, hey, I've got this. All my people below me and them have this. Is there been a time where there's somebody above you, you're like, hey, listen, I got this. Let me tell you I've got this, and let me and my people handle it, and we'll bring back the results, and you win. The big win. You got that?
I remember when I went to El Paso, El Paso bought out Coastal, and I went to a director of South Texas and had a new manager that just started, and we were drilling well down Vicksburg well down in South Texas, and I think it was his first couple of days or week, and he called me middle of the night, and he said, I think you better take this one over. And he said, okay, what kind of pressure? Took a kick.
Ooh.
Drilled into...
Your boss let you take a kick and still let you take
drilled into depleted interval and had a virgin interval above, and his Exxon was draining it, and he said, oh, it's got 8,900. And I said, is that 8,900? And he said, yeah, got 8,900 pounds on the backside. I said, oh, I'll take it over. But luckily it bridged. But no, I think, we're dealing with people.
That's a pressure for me too. Like right now, like I'm doing fire suppression units, and sometimes, we're all in this mix, and like our equipment is possibly going to save lives. So this decision we're going to make about this component, it's going to do this. Like we're all in a room where we all agreeing, but also like some people disagree. Like, use this. It's going to work. That's the way we have to do this. Anybody above me, just trust me on this particular time. So.
Yeah, and talking about handling people, I didn't always do it, but you want to follow the golden rule of being treated like, treat other people like you want to be treated. And I always, at times, have to, don't want your emotions to lead. So you got to be able to control your emotions in critical situations and not, but it is a,
we're all pretty
kind of
passionate about this.
Empowerment.
Those emotions
It is,
without
and engineers aren't trained to be managers or leaders, right? So, but you guys are thrust into it.
And drilling's a risky business, so you're going to have failures. You're going to have well control. You're going to have stuck pipe, but that's where you learn too.
I'm always confused by this, by the way. It seems like we've been doing this a long time, and even if we just talk about horizontals, we've been doing it for 20 years now, but there's still all these problems like where something was missed, and you guys as managers got to be so frustrated with your contractors. It's like, this is ridiculous. You just cut the rope on this darn I had an experience recently, but it's very difficult to see these same failure points.
Yeah,
Mito. Oh yeah,
Mito. I'm learning your new company's name.
Mito Resources. But it's very difficult to, you're empowering these people, but then you see the same failure mode. They would think you're paying these contractors a fair amount of money, a great amount of money, and you're...
Well, then that alerts you that, maybe you need to make a change.
Oh, I know, but that's a very expensive
change. Is that where
change.
it comes from? Like, the second like something hits you in the guts, you're like, okay, I'm going to make a change right now.
A big company and small company is different.
And you tell them that ahead of time. So, let's say 2 companies ago.
Here's the lines that you
So I show up, we pre-spud meeting, go, guys, I've handpicked every one of you. I love every one of you. I've been around most of you, but unfortunately, when we TD this well, some of you aren't going to be here. Okay?
Do you say that?
Oh, yeah. I said that. And the reason why you won't be here is because you're going to put hands out there that are turning the other way, and they're not engaged. But if you're engaged with what we have, if you have, you're buying into what we're doing, everybody has GS or job stop at 40. No problem on that at all. But we are going to work this direction. We're going to do it cost effectively. And so everybody has the intent of doing that right off the bat, but whether they're overloaded or they have some of their ace hands left, there's a million reasons for a directional company or a drilling company or whatever. I can't run the drilling company off with a rig over the hole, but then that's usually the case. And you just you let them go once and say, okay, guys, this is our do-gooder talk. Here we have, did we understand exactly what went wrong? You can't run somebody off on their first try unless it's really egregious and it's fraudulent or they're being so careless that you have to do that.
For the safety of others.
I just don't think there's that many industries that run off people in the middle of a multi-million-dollar experience, but it's very common in oil and gas, especially for directional companies. You brought up, but Bobby would say the same thing.
It's
always
painful.
first to mind is the directional or mud or the two
because you don't know what you're going to get in return. You may not.
Oh yeah, the devil you know, right?
Yeah.
So, but they're always run off. There's always this fear of being run off mid-job.
And it's got to be, you got to have several failure points there. That just doing it on the first, depending on, like you say,
how egregious it is.
Yeah.
But there's
180 degrees out is
there's usually no animosity when that happens. So you explained it. They know where they failed. They stubbed their toe. Okay, I got to go. So
it took me, to mature in my sales and business development, role as if something terrible happens and I do get run off, that's a building experience to improve the next time and appreciate those, opportunities to go, man, guys, here's what we can do. Let's go nail this next time.
No, I was run off one job, and I can go into detail if you guys care. But as a directional hand, I was the night hand. I was run off a Goober 12 or something.
Goober drilling.
Yeah.
Dating yourself.
Yeah, I know. No, I was the night hand, and it was first night there, and the MWD hand. I'm just drilling ahead. We're in the lateral, and the gamma spiked, and the MWD hand, unfortunately, was his first night too. And they said, well, you got out of zone, and they ran me off. That was the first and only time it ever happened, but I was super butthurt. It was like, F that company, F everybody. But it's a hard thing, and I'm just, it seems like...
He's so stoic about those things. Like,
I don't think anyone has ever referred to me as stoic, by the way. More on my sleeve, like, no, but... It hurt a lot, and it just seems like directional in mud. The ones that come to mind, because I'm on the drilling side, that it's very easy to run off these companies. It's this fear always in the back pocket, like that you could be run off if you do anything, even if you try to do better. But like if you fuck up or mess up in some way.
Well, I think that's a leadership issue for the company you work for, because I don't know, I'm sure Bobby didn't lead that way. I know I didn't. No one should ever live under the fear of losing their job for making a mistake that just happened, maybe because of out of their control or bad judgment. I never allowed that to happen. And now, if they totally didn't care, as long as they were fully engaged, if they were disengaged and out to lunch, my question usually was, what's going on in your life right now? Okay.
Really?
Yeah. Tell me about what's going on with you, because this isn't the person that I thought I hired, or this is the person that I've known over the past 1 month, 6 months, 10 years. What's going on with you? And just listen to what they have to say.
That's a very good point.
We need to know.
Yeah.
But you guys are running companies, so you can't care about one
They do,
individual.
but that's why
Yeah,
they're
no,
both,
you do.
Both of these two
Yeah.
are in here
Max,
for
how
that.
could you possibly monitor that with trying to make your bottom line, and the dude is not engaged?
It's a balance.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
You set that balance over
so
in your career.
I'm just going to say, when I was running range locally, 100 people in the office every day. Old acronym, management by walking around. Okay, I just had developed that decades ago. I would walk around every hallway, and I would affirm people by calling them by their first name. I wouldn't necessarily talk to everybody every day, but I would, just because it would take forever, right? But I'd go down and intentionally talk to 1 or 2 people in each hallway, ask them how their kids are doing, ask them whatever, and just because I genuinely cared about them. Okay, so yes, it takes some
And
effort.
that shows.
And it means that you work an extra hour at night because you worked an hour there or whatever it is. You don't keep track of what it is, but yeah, you got to invest in your people. Otherwise it's going to be tough for them to. You got to do what it takes to invest in your people.
Well, that goes back to, so for the last, like 5 minutes of this, this is really, at the end of the day, this is a management, oil and gas podcast. Like, what do you think we could do better in oil and gas?
No, let's start. So Max and I, and to build off of that,
Yeah.
but I think I have a better way to facilitate it for you guys. So Max and I were talking a little bit a while back, and Max told me the best way, to engage. And Max, how do you find employees?
How do you find employees? There's a lot of people listening that in the last couple of days, I've had like 10 people send me their resume and say, hey, put this out to all of your contacts.
Well,
you, Bobby, Max.
Yeah. Okay. So I think as far as the statistics on keeping them around, is that what you're talking about?
Well, we talked about it like a couple weeks ago, right?
Yeah, yeah. So, bottom line is when there's a number of things going on, like let's say at Range, we would offer a head bounty or a bounty for a referral that we actually hired. Because when you take a look at it, it wasn't that it was all that much money. I think it was about $1,000. Okay. But the thing about it is, a 3-year look after somebody comes on board, if they were sponsored by somebody or mentioned by somebody because they knew that individual, they would kind of already put their reputation on the line a little bit. 90% chance of lasting 3 years.
No. Will you say it one more time? 90% chance of lasting 3 years if they were referred.
If they were referred for that position, for that position. Whereas if we did a open solicitation and people mailed their emailed their resumes in and we interviewed them, if nobody knew that person and could vouch for them, it was less than 50-50. Okay, so you almost 2x'd your retention rate after 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, networking.
What's the oldest operator right now?
What is your experience, Bobby? You're employing, you said you had 6 engineers under you when you were in Houston. I assume you had more when you were in Denver.
How many, what's the most
How'd you hire?
You've had what's the most amount of people you've had underneath you at one time? They were like, hey,
well, I guess when I was the team lead of drilling at MCBU, with everybody, it's probably 50 or 60 years.
How'd you hire? Like you heard Max, he's trying to bounty, not bounty, but he's saying we're going to want your friends. Yes, because presumably the employee is telling them, hey, this is what it's like to work for Max or Bobby or whatever.
I mean, even when it was busy, you still had to. A lot of times you couldn't always rely on networking, or you would hope you could, but sometimes you go through a firm or just get resumes, but you need to follow up on those resumes to find out, because I have seen many. I always looked at gaps. you know, I didn't have a gap in my resume till
Yeah, there's
you
no
know,
more gaps
July.
anymore. By the way,
But-
if you have a gap in your resume, put consulting engineer in that gap.
No. Founder. $100, Secretary of State, get you a LLC, founder of so-and-so, Holloway Resources, LLC. It's like a variable real estate. Man, or,
It's just saying you weren't idle. That's what you're looking for.
He's still
But-
not.
but even
I
field
look up
people-
this guy all the time.
supervisors, night guys, day guys, they work out better if you go through a consulting firm and get one. If the superintendent or another supervisor or an engineer knows somebody, I don't know what the percentage is, but it's going to be a lot higher.
When Max told me that, it kind of blew my mind. Right? And that's hence why I wanted to bring it up and talk about it today, because the retention rate, if by referral, which, you know, I'm always rooting for the underdog. So how does this guy that got his degree from, you know, Virginia or somewhere else that is not Texas, so you may not know him. But you want them to be able to come in. But it makes so much sense because the people that already worked with Max know his idiosyncrasies, how he operates everything. So,
and that's other industries as well.
Sure.
Yeah, my son's in the hotel restaurant business, and same.
You couldn't get him into one gas.
yeah, and let me also say that, you know, it works for layers, right? So even though I was running the organization, the frontline positions, they might have one layer or supervisor and then another manager. So it's the personality of the individuals, but it's mainly the corporate culture. Okay, that's the type. You know, work hard, play hard, or forgiveness, or, you know, whatever the culture is that you're trying to shape.
Gas companies are the same culture, though. Do you think where you're like built toward like, hey, we're all here to do hard work. Let's go.
No, I mean it's really conveyed differently.
Yeah. How many operators in the U.S. right now total?
Well,
So
yeah.
2,000. There's like close to 2,000 in Houston, 200 here, 200 like just operator like you go. So every single culture completely different.
Well, it's kind of like, you know, from my perspective, I had 3 kids raised in the same house. Expectations were the same for each one of them, but their discipline packages were different. In other words, you can go after a certain type of culture that you're trying to do, but you got all these moving parts to go around with it. There are some people that just simply are just there for the money. Okay, they're going to drive their employees that way, and there's others that.
what's the difference? What do you think the difference is?
Well, it's just
because we're all motivated by money, right? We'd
Well,
be doing something else. Maybe you'd be painting.
I've taken jobs with less pay just because I wanted to be.
Experience in it.
When I went to
done so.
Coastal, I wanted to go there because they had 50 rigs running, and I wanted to be busy. And
So job security. That's why you picked that one.
or just learning.
Job,
Oh, yeah, okay.
job satisfaction,
Satisfaction,
right? Yeah,
that's it.
right. Because there's a number of things that go into that. Of course, all my stuff when I got my MBA probably isn't applicable today like it was back in the 80s when I got my MBA. But back then, they showed that a person will forego up to 25% of their total compensation package if they enjoy going to work every day versus not enjoying it.
That
So take a
happened
pay
in the
cut.
Downturn, I was called and said, "Hey, would you take a pay cut and stay with our company?" And I sure as heck did for 25% less. I will still work.
I'll tell you, I've done
Yeah.
something similar, but it was light at the end of the tunnel. Like I knew if I went with this company, similar to what you said, Bobby, the opportunities that would prevail by working for.
But
this
you'll catch up. You'll catch up.
Yeah, or different opportunities.
Where you're still in the game.
Yeah, or
Yeah, that's
learn
right.
a new discipline. Still in the game, I know is a big thing that people definitely have to do at times.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very important.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just one of those things. I picked jobs that paid less because I love the people and I knew the
There
opportunity.
it is. The people too. Your boss,
Mhm.
your peers. And
Yeah, that's why I work for Trace. But like the opportunities that also could arise. So you can
Yeah,
go
your
be
your
a
peers
cog
here
for
at Trace ended up being Mito
yeah,
Resources.
yeah. I could be a cog in a wheel for another rig contractor, or I could go somewhere, learn all about the different facets, and have the ability to go that direction or that direction. Or,
HP Coastal. No.
Publicly
No,
traded.
no.
No,
They
publicly
never said,
traded,
"Hey,
you're
by
not
the
going
way, you're
to.
gonna
But when
be
I was
on
with the
this
smaller
other
company in
company,
Dallas,
This is
then
all ours. Good luck.
Did you do it, Bobby?
we didn't get part of the well, but if the company spun off and sold, then you would get a proportionate share based on your original contract. But they never,
What do you
while I
think-
was there, they never sold, so
Yeah.
I went to a.
What do you think the best motivator for the young guys that are working?
Yeah, come into oil and gas, please. What are you gonna do?
Bobby, the companies you work for is going to be job security, right? It's a big ass company. You got a lot to do. Maybe you can go into different disciplines. Max, Standing up tall over there.
Yeah, well, I'm fourth generation oil and gas, all right? And I made it available for my kids to join. Only one of them chose to do so. I'm proud of all three of them. They're all very successful in their own right and everything. They're doing great. One of them chose to get in on the human resource side. And after working for 3 oil and gas companies in less than 5 years, she got out of the oil and gas business. Okay. Lots of jersey. She had more jersey changes than I did.
Like, no, she's still in it.
Yeah, now she's a stud, and she had she was in a position that she can easily transport to any other industry, right? HR, you can go. So she just is knocking it. She's crushing it now with another local group. So as far as the draw in, I've got to say you've got to be passionate about it somehow, okay? Because that's the only.
Why are you guys passionate about it?
Your engineering.
What is like?
Is
Matt, why are you passionate about oil and gas?
I think oil and gas is the epitome of solid gold energy. Like it's the most it's the perfect energy except for nuclear. Nuclear, none of us understand and really enjoy. So we're going to continue to produce oil and gas for generations.
My passion was the people, your job, just your satisfaction. I just love, you got it in drilling, completions, you get a scorecard every day, every morning. Everybody knows what you're doing, but I didn't like the reservoir. I like production, but I want to see what's going on every day, the activity wise. And that's why, it just, in oil and gas, it's just kind of the attitude of people that, can do, we can get this done, and teamwork.
We solve our own solutions.
I've been in it 40 years. It was 40 years when I retired, but it's just some of the people that have mentored me, coached me, and led me. And I mean, I've, talking about some well controls, but you got to have some great people out there that can respond to tough situations too. So
solving and moving something forward.
That's right.
So engineers are engineers typically because they don't like people. Okay, so you have conflict in the world. You have man versus man. You have man versus nature. So first of all, you've got to have the personality to be a scientist, if you will. Okay, or in that line of it. So being a teenager, I didn't know what I would fall in love with other than I'd been around the oil and gas piece of it from the service side of it because that's the previous two generations. So if I was looking to fall in love with something, then why not petroleum engineering? Because they paid a lot of money. Yeah. So I got into it initially for money. Okay, but then I got into it from the standpoint as I continued to grow through it. I wanted to wake up every day thinking I could hit a home run.
Yeah.
I want to swing for the fence every day. And so I'm not saying unnecessary risk, literally, but it took a while to get out of a big corporation and then get into a small company. That was my dream, have my own operating company. And so I was able to get that done for one season of my life, but then it grew into a couple of just basically just philosophies. And one is that as we continue to grow, I wanted to be part of a generation that got this oil and gas business right, and that we didn't have to send our young men and women over to the Middle East to defend Middle Eastern oil. We didn't want to have them die on that soil, be self-sufficient. So at least Bobby, me, and you guys can say also that you're part of a generation that got it right. Now we've got so much of it, they don't want it anymore, right? Mm-hmm. So now the tide has turned, right? Even though we're getting ready to hit peak gas production, which means we're going to have a lot more oil production. And it's, so anyway, you got to have more than money as a reason for going after it. And for me, I wanted to get it right.
So what's the future of oil and gas for you?
For me, I think I'm going to ride it as long as I can. Yeah. I just hope when my head falls down on the desk, I don't, poke my eye with a pen. I just.
I want you to half marathon with me.
And I've done that.
So I ran a.
Yeah, I know you did. So Max and I are going to run the half marathon.
We're going to run it. We're going to do it.
That's where he's going to die.
Yeah, hopefully after the finish line, not before.
Give you mouth to mouth. It's going to be terrible.
No.
What is the funnest thing you guys have done in the industry over your experience?
Oh, that's fun. There we go. But
the best
memory ever.
Bobby, when were you my gosh, this is fun. I'm changing. I'm doing good, or whatever it is. When was that for you, Bobby? You're like,
it's probably
did it right.
Probably when I went from BHP Petroleum, which I just finished drilling deepwater wells, but I went over to Coastal where they had all the activity. The best boss I ever had. He was the one that give you a project, walk out of your office, and he'd empower you.
What's his name?
But his door was always open. If you didn't know what.
How did he give you a project, by the way? Did he just say, "Hey, Bobby, I'm curious if we could do this"?
Back
and
then,
then he walks out of the room.
Back then, it was on a Lotus 1, 2, 3 spreadsheet, and he said, "Okay, these are the wells."
What is that?
Yeah, so
I know.
Do you know what it is?
No, I don't know what
He
it
doesn't
is.
know
Seriously?
what
No.
Lotus is. Yeah.
Oh my
it's just
gosh.
like Excel. It was.
Lotus was before.
It was what enabled an engineer like Bobby and me to become an entrepreneur.
What is it?
It's like Excel.
Excel.
It's a spreadsheet. It's a computer. The advent of the computer in the late 80s enabled me to go from a corporate job to being a one-man shop because I had a computer. I can then type. I had a word processor. I had an Excel spreadsheet. I had a dot matrix printer. The
Harvard graphics
Yeah,
instead of
it's just-
PowerPoint.
Had a Summa graphics, Summa sketch where I can integrate maps. Oh yeah, that technology revolutionized it.
All right, so Bobby, you had this
Well,
new technology and a boss that empowered you.
Well, and we always, the way they did it at Coastal, you would get 2 or 3 jackups and 4 or 5 land rigs. So as an engineer, going over there as an engineer, and you may have 6 or 7 rigs running at one time. And then I went to engineering manager to drilling manager, but it was the same way. So but when you had a problem, it was usually the land rigs kind of got pushed aside because most of the problems were going to be offshore because of the spread rate.
And the money, yeah.
Oh, the money is just, high dollar. But no, you just learn so much. And then El Paso took them over, and it was the same way. They called it a director, but it's kind of like a team lead. But you had drilling managers working for you. But yeah, we probably had 20, 25 rigs. And
So it's offshore. Offshore is
now
where you
this
had the most
with
fun.
El Paso, I was just doing South Texas, deep Vicksburg, Wilcox, all high pressure stuff, some depletion, Frio, but then also at Coastal, what was pretty cool, we had 5 coastal drill rigs that Coastal owned, and Neighbors, Gray Wolf, and Patterson provided the crews, but I was responsible for them, and this is back when rig rates were $9,000-$10,000 a day, but we still made, $5 or $6 million a year on. After tax and everything. So it was very profitable, but that was really, really pretty cool too, just to be able to work along with but it just, drilling those Vicksburg wells, I had a plot one time, it's like the top 10 wells that we brought in. They're drilling vertical wells and have multiple, pay, down in the valley. Nobody was drilling past 10,000 feet, and these were 16, 17,000 feet with 17-pound, 18-pound mud weights, and with the flow rates, they'd frack all these different sands, but they'd be 100 million a day wells, and they obviously decline, but it was amazing how much we got a BCF a day down there drilling those Vicksburg wells.
It's just a lot of fun being a part of this dynamic. Everyone's making money.
And it was
Everyone's having a good time.
Great people, and it was just a good atmosphere. And
Mm-hmm.
so that was always my favorite job down in Houston.
Max, what about you? When do you go?
Man,
that's fun.
Well, there was a bunch of them. So I'm over there kind of cataloging
Hey, you
them.
got 11 jerseys.
I got a lot of jerseys. I'm going to say one of my first ones was when I started my own operating company, and I was driving westbound on a county road, and I'm coming up over a hill, and off to the right was Allen Rig 5, and off to my left was a workover rig, and both of those were on my wells, and I was running the whole thing. And so it was just really cool, just rolling up on it, and I just had goosebumps.
Yeah, I'm drilling that. I'm going to provide this.
Over here.
I'm doing that.
Yeah, and the rig was on the company maker. The workover rig was on the company maker. Because usually when you launch, there's a certain event that happens that enables you to cascade and propel forward. And this particular one was a Smiley, a 19 is the name of it. And anyway, that was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Why?
Yeah.
What's that?
Why?
Why were you like, okay?
Why was it?
Because it was a dream.
I did all
It was a dream.
Yeah.
And so we get back to me. I did all this here a little bit later.
You did it though, right? You did it. I mean, your bosses were like, finally, this is you.
No, it was me. It was my operating company. I was a one-man show.
yeah.
I was running it. That was just all. Had investors.
cool.
I put it up.
That would be-
There was another one that was a lot of fun in December of '05. I don't know if you guys recall the blowout or all the surface escapes of methane gas around Okarche and everything. That was from the Edmondson Trust 133 that Chesapeake had. They had a downhole blowout. I was with Dominion at the time. The Stroud 15A was right over there. We were in the Mississippi. I was planning a recompletion to come up in that Morrow. Chesapeake had a downhole blowout because they didn't send an immediate. I mean, it was just such a crazy show. Okay, people talking from West Texas about how gas comes up, and everybody, the politics and the smoke that got put out was crazy. So in the meantime, I go into my boss at the corner office, said, "I can handle this. You just have to stay out of my way." And so he goes, "Go after it." And so in less than 8 days, I had 5 flow lines coming out of our well without ever stopping it. And we were going to 3 different pipeline pressures, 1,000 pounds, 500 pounds, and 100 pounds. We never shut that well in. In the 30 days for the month of January in 2006, we made a BCF out of that well. Okay? And all of a sudden the gas started dissipating, and Chesapeake was able to get their arms around it. Nobody ever acknowledged. I never got a thank you card. I never got a Christmas card. Nothing saying that, hey, thank you for handling that. As our gas migrated through the Flower Mounds shale and was outcropping in all these creeks and these wheat fields and stuff like that. But then making 600 barrels of oil a day gravy out of that. And so I was given a presentation from the whole corporation. And I said, the best thing my management did, the division manager did, was just stay out of my way. And he came over after that. He had his hand up, and he just stuck it out. He goes, "That's the best compliment you could have given me." So I go, "Okay, well, I'm not trying to kiss up, but you did a good job staying out of the way." So he just said, "Let me have it."
And that means a lot on something of that magnitude.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
Empowered.
And but the public doesn't know it. The public doesn't know it.
What should the public know? Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up pretty quick.
Okay.
What should we do as an industry for the next generation and the public? What can we do to make oil and gas, great again? You're seeing it from all sides. Like, we're battling right now.
We're battling a reputation of, the current president, threw out, oil and gas, they have pipeline leaks everywhere. And, I think oil's dirty and
Which is not the case. But what can we do as an industry to fix everything?
I think oil and gas is just a negative connotation. I think, what Ventive did or Encana did in Ventive was to get away from the oil and gas title and can look at it more as an energy company.
Affordable,
reliable,
abundant.
Clean, safe, affordable, reliable. Yeah, I think you gotta. We probably just don't promote
Education.
And I think with these emissions, that's what that ESG. That one of the subsets of that is to eliminate fossil fuels, and which.
Well, it's not possible, right? Because green hydrogen is still
Oklahoma's
gas.
going to be a hydrogen.
But what are you going to do about 50% of the consumption on oil is transportation worldwide. Then you got ships, you got airplanes. What are you going to convert to? What is I read something this morning saying 22nd century everything will be depleted. Is that really true? I think deep water is probably going to come into play with those high volume wells in the future, which is not figured in the depletion rate. But
should we be drilling deep water wells?
I think you're going to.
Really? No.
No, I don't think so.
I think you're going to have to someday.
I hope not. I don't want it.
Yeah, well, when economics dictate, right? But now, the economics don't dictate.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not a lot of projects.
But we need to be less offended. Okay.
Wait, oil and gas?
Yeah. The bottom line is the Greens are getting it figured out that they're not ready for prime time. Mm-hmm. It's going to take a long time. So just take a deep breath. Be cordial, be informative, don't be argumentative, but just show up, do your job, and excel at it. And we're going to have the need for oil and gas for a long time.
Max, what is our responsibility on that? No. What is our responsibility on that? Because we're providing the petrol or the fuel of some sort.
But every single thing in the
but not necessarily the emissions. We're not the emissions. right? It's someone else that is burning all the energy we're providing.
Well, but we're refining stuff. I was looking at this the other day. You know, we talked about it was on Squawk Box, and it had the hospitals and how struggling they were, and there was a commercial on Going Green, and I'm over there going, I would like for somebody, some artist, to take a snapshot in the hospital and highlight everything that's made out of hydrocarbons in that entire picture. The needles that we're using to get COVID shots.
Well, are we doing this wrong though? No, I'm asking a bigger question.
Well, electric cars. Look at all the
No.
plastic that's come from petrochemicals.
We're being demonized for providing the fuel, but not the we're being demonized for the emissions of the fuel that someone else is burning. So where is our liability in this? Should the companies that are burning it be more efficient with it?
Well, you know,
Yeah,
we're all trying to get better. I mean, there's just no doubt. I don't think I've met anybody in the oil and gas industry says, "Wow, you know, I'm sure I'm glad I'm polluting every day." No, they're trying to do the best they can.
Yeah.
You know, so I think you just keep you keep a sensible mind on the forward progress of the thing. You know, you can only do what you can do.
Yeah,
So
but we're being demonized for providing the petrol, not how it's
just
burned.
let it happen. Okay, so what's happening? Oil's at 82, 83. I didn't look at what it did today.
And Richard Spears can go up. We're
Yeah.
gonna have-
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, it's going to keep.
I'm the $100 guy. I'm the $100 club.
I
Full loan.
think so,
When?
too.
When's it go to 100?
I think it'll be the end of this year.
Yeah.
Wait. We need to have a little pot of money here for future people when they come in.
I
Everyone
think
says
No,
this
it's
price,
I think
that
it'll
price.
be this
A dollar
Yeah.
bill. I'll put my prediction on it. Dollar bill. I'll sign my name. I'll put it in there.
Where's your dollar bill?
Well, let me
Did
get
you-
it out
did
of
you
my
loan me
crypto
one?
account.
Did you loan that dollar?
Crypto. You got crypto down?
I believe. Okay, I believe.
Do you have any hash notes on your well sites yet?
No.
Let's talk.
Okay. Right.
I got the guy.
What do you believe? What do you believe, by the way?
I believe that we can no longer ignore the role of crypto in our society. That from a position standpoint, I'm not a guy that would pick an individual crypto, but I believe that some type of a mutual or ETF that represents a certain blend of them is similar to a financial portfolio, just like exploration is to a oil and gas company's portfolio.
So crazy.
How many wells are you guys operating right now? Yeah.
The same answer from before.
Yeah, I know.
You already asked that one.
Yeah, I know.
My drink didn't change my answer.
No, I mean, because if you have that, you know, I was asking you, how many of those are flaring right now?
Pretty sure.
I'm pretty sure that we need to get you another drink.
Well, I'm just saying, like, but if you put a hash note,
What do you-
every single one of those, you're taking to the problem.
Well, yeah, I see what you're saying. Well, I'm all for that. Where we had stranded gas, where it makes sense to do it, I am all for looking at those options. But when the amount of emissions that's being combusted is so stinking low, it's you know,
Yeah.
it's a lot.
Is so stinking low acceptable?
Well,
Not today.
If it doesn't make sense for the investment of putting the equipment out there to make it money, a rate of return, I'd say from a Bitcoin mining standpoint, or from a crypto mining standpoint, I don't know. To me, it's just maybe you guys need to educate me more. But if it doesn't make dollars and dollar cents, I don't know.
Crypto's making between 15 and 30 MCF.
No.
I haven't looked at it. I don't know.
They're
It's outside of my.
using it to
You're
make
talking
electricity,
about
though, aren't they?
no, Bobby. You're talking about the bare minimum to operate a generator on site, and then to power a server farm or data miners is what they're called. So you're just saying how much gas is the bare minimum to operate a couple?
operate that.
Yeah. So that's kind of a big thing, and I don't know what crypto will take over, but like.
Well, I'm not going to say it's going to take over, but I'm going to say it needs to be paid attention to,
Why?
and it's worth an
Why?
investment because it's got so much momentum behind it.
So
Why
what
be
you're
in
talking
the-
about is the money behind it, not the principles behind it, but the money
But
behind
that's
it.
part of it. No,
Can I
that's
get back to my oil and gas? I have 42 years in oil
No
and
way.
gas. Z is less than one in crypto. So
No waste, or no zero carbon, right? No waste. We can put out a mine.
Well, but if you're doing anything crypto, you're generating a digital currency that is not a tangible asset by any means. It's just this thing digitally that
You think
exists.
dollars are tangible assets right now? No.
you just lost your other viewer.
Doesn't matter.
There we go. Hey,
All right.
we're ending this. By the way, you gotta get these guys.
Man, I really enjoyed hearing your guys' passions, by the way, and why you're in this. That is awesome. Bobby was staring off and remembering when it was really great.
Well, you know, one other story, which was really kind of, I enjoyed, is when I was at Remington, which is a Dallas company. All they did was Gulf of Mexico. But 2005, Katrina hit, and then Rita hit, you know, real close together, August, September. But we lost 3 rowing rigs that were on platforms that got knocked over. But we also had several platforms, tripods. But there was a year that I was just using lift boats and jackups and wells that were laid over on the seabed and doing hot tapping and plugging them, which I really, at the time, really enjoyed the everything I was learning on deep sea, you know, divers, and you know, we had mudline trees that had anchor chains got pulled over and, you know, put them over on the seabed. So yeah, it was an interesting time of just doing the
everything in our
P&A.
future is interesting as well. Like we're going to go from that to unmanned rigs. So our technology is.
Yeah, there's a lot of unmanned
wow.
rigs for P&As and
the future of our oil and gas is, you know, going to be extraordinary. There's always going to be room for and space for oil and gas. It's just going to be, all we're doing is changing. That's it.
that's something we didn't touch on was orphan wells.
Okay, well, next podcast.
Yeah, Bobby, you can come back.
Anytime anybody wants to talk for 2 more hours.
You know, and I asked you guys about your passion. No one's listening at this point, but I do want to tell you about when I got passionate about oil and gas. Nobody cares. Nobody cares at all. But I can tell you, how I got in oil and gas was super random. I was in the military, got out, and this is the first job that paid the best, working on MWD tools. And then some company offered me a job to go work for them, and I was an MWD hand. But eventually I made it to a directional driller. I'll tell you, the most fun, it was so much fun because, you know, and I was 90% of my career as a directional hand was a night hand. So all the chiefs were asleep. It was just the Indians, right? It was all the guys doing all the work. I don't know if that's politically. I can't say that anymore. Sorry. All the guys.
Finally, I have to edit.
It's Oklahoma.
No, but all the guys that were in charge were asleep. So at night, I was just this night hand. And if you give me, so I was right at the cusp of the change for PDC and Tricone in Alfalfa County, Oklahoma. Most of my directional experiences there. But they gave us bits, and we kept trying with PDCs for Chesapeake to try to do an entire curve. And when we landed one, oh my gosh, but a PDC changes everything from a tricone. A tricone is you set the weight and you fucking let it do its thing. But a PDC is figure out how to get it to cut, right? So if you could get that bend through it and get it to start sliding, all of a sudden you're doing 130 foot an hour, 200 foot an hour, where before you were only doing 30 to 40 feet an hour. Yeah. So if you could hold it, and you had to figure out how to not let too much weight hit the bit, but figure out this median. And at night, I'm just watching it slide, and I'm getting over 200 foot, and I'm playing with all the parameters on the top drive to make sure it held that weight, and because I figure out when it would actually, all the weight would stack, and then it would stop. But when you could drill a curve at 200 foot in an hour, and just having a blast up there, just the only guy, and you're sitting there playing with the computer nonstop, adjusting the differential parameters, and just doing all this stuff. That's the most fun I ever had. Oh, cool. I enjoyed it so much. But I was the one. I was the guy out there. My very close to the bed. Granted, it was 2 miles underground, but I was the guy that was steering that thing, and I was keeping it digging when other people couldn't. That was the most fun I ever had.
Oh, when they wake up in the morning.
Yeah, they're like, oh my gosh, you made 60 degrees, right? All of a sudden, you're almost done with the curve, and that was the most fun I ever had.
Sweet.
Out on the bed, just watching it and making that damn thing drill.
Cool. He hasn't had any fun since, by the way.
Nah, it's all fun. I like money, so I enjoy oil and gas. But anyway, that is my little story. So.
All right, well, we're wrapping this up. I love you, buddy, and I'm so glad we're all in this together. Hey, anybody want to shout out?
Oh gosh, guys! Before we run out of here, so the AADE is having an immense trouble getting engineers to it, but everyone has
a new president.
Well, they're looking for a new president. But either all these societies, these local Oklahoma societies, need young engineers to participate instead of the damn service companies. Guys, what do we have to do to get companies to
In Canada, were you guys pushing your young engineers
yeah.
to get involved in the local advocacy group?
Max, are you?
I mean,
are you guys doing anything to make sure they're
Well,
engaged?
he and I are part of the Oilfield Christian Fellowship, so
Yeah,
we have enough on our plate.
Bobby, did you encourage and would allot them time to go to these?
Oh yeah, yeah, ADE or SPE or.
It's good for them.
I mean, but
right?
you didn't put it on their performance appraisal that they must or they shall go, but encouraged them to. But they all have families and their own time and.
Do you think it's necessary? All
yeah.
these groups.
Oh,
They're the ones that are missing out.
Do they help?
It's an
Yeah.
investment.
All right, guys.
Yeah.
So, as leaders in the industry,
networking. I mean, that's
push
where
these guys to do it more. Like, what do we got to do? Like, my buddy someone called him to ask him to lead the AAD because they can't find any engineers that'll do it. So you're getting a ton of service companies, but you're not getting a lot of involvement.
and
What
it's-
do we got to do, guys?
It's not just Oklahoma
society.
City. It's Dallas,
Why?
Houston.
It's society.
What is it? What is it?
Everybody's
What do
being
we
their own
gotta do,
guy.
guys?
Everybody's
Their
being their own
time
guy
is so
anymore.
limited.
It's this
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
It's just everybody huddled up in their own little world, and man,
Max,
this thing
that's
is the
top down,
worst.
though. That is your ability to say, hey, well.
Well,
do
hang
you
on a
think
second here.
it's-
Well, hang on
Man,
a
he
second here.
pushes his people to come to our
First of all, I got a small shop.
Yeah.
I mean, super small shop.
He's
Like-
at the events
like,
and he
you know,
pushes his
you
people
know,
to do
Oh,
it.
he was there at the API yesterday.
I think over lunches
Lunches.
That works a
are
lot better.
better.
Yeah.
Yeah, because people have kids' activities,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
family, so at night sometimes it's a little more difficult.
Do you think you motivated your people to participate in these societies?
Oh yeah, you tried to. When I was in Calgary, we would go to and see ADE up there, but yeah, we all kind of go together as a group. Same as when I was in Houston and Dallas, but yeah, you try to encourage them and.
From a corporate side, did you pay for it?
Oh yeah. Oh,
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
The dues
corporate
are
side, these young
so-
engineers,
yeah.
they're trying to keep up with the Joneses and buy all the shit. So
Yeah.
it has to be almost corporate sponsored. Service companies is corporate sponsored. Max, what do you do?
Well, so
put you
once
on
again,
the
we're
spot.
a super small shop right
Max,
now.
you got an engineer though, right?
No, you don't. No, I don't.
No, he
I'm
has
the
to
youngest
take
guy
care
at my
of it
office.
right now. Yeah, youngest and oldest, yeah.
I'm the youngest guy. I got two
He
other
takes through all
part-time
of it.
engineers, and I'm the youngest guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I go. So.
But you do believe in this participation?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The companies so you guys say something and my mind starts reeling. So the publicly traded companies, that had a staff, yeah, definitely encourage that kind of stuff. Because I was suppressed when I was younger. And the reason why I was suppressed when I was younger is because people didn't want you to network enough and become too valuable because then they would lose you. Going to these lunches and these networking is an investment for yourself. And too many times, the easier thing to do is to get in a corner and check your phone, is what I'm finding. And maybe that I can't paint everybody with the same brush. But the ones that are more, say, active and interactive are the ones in the future that are going to become more the leaders, if you so to speak. And so that's my feeling. And I encourage my kids to do that in their own professions. Just really do.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are better than others, but some of them it's just a personality. Ergo, engineers don't like people.
Right.
That's not.
Right, but
It's
you guys-
man,
not the
and I say
case.
that tongue in cheek, right?
Yeah.
That's why we're scientists, is because we like
Scientists.
nature and data. We don't like interacting with people.
Okay.
In general, I know it sounds bad, but that's
I mean, by all means, all my friends.
that's how
You're not
you-
blowing any
Yeah.
no.
pre.
Yeah, I know, but I'm not trying to talk negatively. It's just we're not geared that way. I think in general. But you just loosen up and
All
eventually you see
engineers
it.
I know wonderful people, and then
Yeah.
you get guys like Jeremiah, who's like rubs you the wrong way.
But
Yeah.
you can learn, especially if somebody's operating in the same. You can troubleshoot, have common problems that you can solve together and improve your performance. I mean, that's the bottom line. If you're wanting to, as engineers, most of them are fairly competitive, and they want that performance to be going down. So you can meet somebody and exchange notes and ideas, and we were drilling Eaglebine wells in kind of central Texas, Robinson County, and kind of Eagleford, Woodbine, but EOG was kicking our butts, and so I saw a EOG engineer at it was an AED or some gathering, and I said, "Man, what are you doing?" And he said, "Oh, it's the auto driller." He said, "We're just putting that ROP opened up and we're cramming the weight to it, and we changed that, and we started, drilling 8-9 day wells like they were, but we were 11 or 12 days. But you can just learn and improve your performance by just talking to competitors.
You guys are the seasoned guys that are working for these companies. Please continue to encourage them. Matt is on, I don't know how many boards. I'm only on one, but we're not getting enough participation, and a lot of time it would appear that they're not getting the allotment of time. Whether it be over lunch or something like that, but it's a 2-hour lunch, it's a 3-hour lunch or something like
Depends
that
on
to
what
go to
they have
these
going
events.
on, yeah.
Yeah, but they're not getting supported by their companies either. Maybe a part of that is private equity. So private equity wants to get in and out, so they don't want to invest that much. But the societies are all floundering, so we need to
across the board.
More in them.
Yeah, and you also got to remember about compared to 2014ish. I'm going to say roughly about 75% of the people are out of the business.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So there's a lot fewer people to carry the ball.
Well, because of this show, we're gonna encourage a lot of younger generation, people up and coming. What's their next career move? It's gonna be oil and gas. So final words between our expert leaders. What do you want to say to everybody that is out there looking for a career? Is oil and gas your place?
I'm not going to say yes or no. I'm just going to say whatever you do, bring it with passion, and you will succeed at anything you do if you believe in it and you're passionate about it. So if for some reason oil and gas is in your path, jump all over it and you'll make it work.
Return on investment, our industry is the best, right?
Well, that's why I got in it years ago, and I'm not really seeing a lot different right now. Maybe a lot of things have changed, but that's other than people that went to play professional sports coming out of UT. Petroleum engineering was the #1 paid job. So, but it also, once again, it provides, do it for the right reasons. Do it for the satisfaction and the story that you're going to be involved with everything that gets made around here. Those syringes that put vaccines, if you're a vaxxer, the ability to paint a room, or whatever, I guess VOCs. Your cars, your wheels, the tire.
And I can shoot deer because of it.
Okay, or you have rubber on the tires, and nobody's going to take that away from you in an electric car. And that rubber requires some hydrocarbon.
Good point.
Yeah, nobody's going to take that away.
No, he said it very well.
Yeah,
I think you gotta just like sports, athletics. You gotta have passion. You gotta have desire and want and to improve. You gotta be competitive, and it does pay well. I mean, I've raised 3 kids as well, and it's had a great wife, that stood by me for all these 40 years. So.
Traveling and everything else that comes with it. Yeah.
But no, I think if it's a desire to go into it, like he said, it's going to be, I remember in 1970 they said that oil would be depleted and gone by 2022. I just saw that online there the other day, but it keeps pushing. They're going to technology advancement and learning. Look at unconventionals, what they've done to the industry. How many times they said they're going to peak oil and it's still not there.
Rewrite that.
I think it's a renewable resource, but that's a whole other story. So you guys are always welcome guests in here, and we can touch on that topic again in the future. Jeremiah, got anything?
I don't. I've really enjoyed you guys.
Well, thank you for hosting us.
I mean,
enjoyed it.
Two of my favorite people on the planet came in here today. I'm so excited we have these guys. So I really, really love you both. Appreciate you. God bless you both for being in this industry. My friends, I can't rely on you enough for all the knowledge. Max, love you, buddy.
Yeah.
Bobby, both of you are extremely important to me. And I hope that, and how do people get a hold of you? You're both on LinkedIn, right?
Right.
Reach out to you. Anybody that has questions about oil and gas or just leadership and, oil and, just operations in general, these two are amazing.
And I'll just say that too. If anybody wants to talk, I'm free.
Yeah.
I would love to talk operations.
Bobby's quasi-retired.
Quasi.
We can
get some time. Anybody that wants to reach out to Bobby and do a little project with him, he knows what he's doing.
He's super personal too. I highly recommend it.
I appreciate
Max is
that.
okay too.
Max is all right.
Yeah, the fun thing is I got to say thank you to you guys for what you all do in the industry too.
Oh.
You're over here, you're trying to churn it, you're trying to do things to really bring the light on the right part of the oil and gas business. So thank you for everything that you
God's
guys
been
do.
good to me.
Yeah.
I'm in this spot, and, like, we got this podcast studio, and, like, I want to get back to our industry.
Yeah.
Like, let's
No,
all
I
do
ditto
this.
that.
And you,
Yeah.
and you know your faith is obvious, Matt, and I appreciate that. My salvation story came through the oil and gas business
Yeah.
in 1998. Love to share that with you guys sometime when it's the right time. So
Get back in here anytime you want.
Okay.
And God's been good to me, and there's no other blessing than being with you three right now. So
All right.
I get excited.
Thank you,
Hey,
Matt. Thank you,
I'm gonna
Jeremiah.
cut this
Thank you,
off
Bobby.
Right now.
No,
Let
thank
them
you.
get back to their families. We'll see you guys next time. Look up the Talking Industry Show.
2022, our first show.
Max Holloway, yeah, exactly. We have amazing, guests in the future. Will you please recommend to your other friends come in here and hang out with us? No, they won't.
Sure.
Please.
Appreciate it. Take care. God bless everybody.
And
See you
take
next
care.
time.
Thank you.
Bye bye.